Daddy by Sylvia Plath. Structure, summary, analysis. Hello and welcome to the discourse. Daddy is perhaps Sylvia Plath's best known poem. The poem was first published in Ariel in 1965 and later included in the collected poems in 1981. Plath wrote Daddy on October 12, 1962, shortly after separating from her husband, Hughes. This period was marked by intense emotional turmoil for her. It is a powerful and complex poem that delves into themes of male authority, trauma, and the struggle for identity. Told from the perspective of a woman addressing her father, the memory of whom has an oppressive power over her, the poem details the speaker's struggle to break free of his influence. The poem explores the deification and mythologizing of authority figures, particularly the speaker's father. It reflects on the speaker's complex feelings towards her father, combining love and resentment. Sylvia Plath lost her father at a very young age. The speaker begins by idolizing her father and presenting him as the most important figure in her past. The speaker expresses her anger as a woman who felt oppressed by her parents' expectations of her, society's hindering roles in the place for women, and her ex-husband's unfaithfulness. The struggle to break free from the shadow of her father's influence is a central theme. In the poem, the speaker alludes to the toxic male authority symbolized by her father, comparing Daddy to a Nazi soldier. The poet uses Holocaust imagery to symbolize the pain and terror of oppression that she as a female felt in the patriarchal setup. In addition, the poet also uses other violent myths and history, including those of Electra, vampirism, and voodoo. In the end, the speaker alludes to her marriage as a continuation of the struggle and oppression. Structure of Daddy. The poem has 80 lines set in 60 quatrains, 5-line stanzas. However, there is no other specific pattern or form for the poem. That is, poem is written in free verse quatrains. The regularity of stanza, length, and short lines suggests a weird nursery rhyme. Plath has used a regular meter for the poem. The meter is roughly tetrameter, 4 beats, but also uses pentameter with a mix of stresses, iambs, anapes, and trochee. The poet has used enjambment and stop lines, metaphor, simile, imagery, symbolism, allusion, apostrophe, onomatopoeia, repetition, and alliteration in the poem. Summary of Daddy. Stanza 1, lines 1 to 5. You do not do any more black shoe, in which I have lived like a foot for 30 years, poor and white, barely daring to breathe or achoo. The speaker begins with an apostrophe as she directly addresses her father, whom she lost when she was 8. The speaker says that for 30 years she has been living trapped inside the memory of her father, but now she will get rid of it. She uses metaphor to compare the oppressive dominance of her father or his memories over her with a black shoe. Inside a tight shoe, it is dark and there is no air. While a shoe is expected to protect the foot, a tight shoe may cause trouble and aches. The speaker is not wearing that shoe though. She feels as if she is living in it, trapped in the dark, bearing the weight of her whole existence. The speaker says after 30 years, she will no longer be trapped in the memory of her father. The speaker feels that the poverty, ill condition, fear, and inability to breathe or sneeze, achoo, are all due to his father's oppressive dominance over her, which still lingers. Achoo is an example of onomatopoeia. The poet used repetition in the very first line, and when repetition is so close, it is termed epizeuxis. The metaphor black shoe and the image of the speaker living in a black shoe alludes to the popular nursery rhyme, There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. Stanza 2, lines 6 to 10. Daddy, I have had to kill you. You died before I had time. Marble heavy, a bag full of God, ghastly statue with one grey toe, big as a Frisco seal. In line 6, the speaker directly addresses her father as Daddy, apostrophe. The speaker reveals the extent of oppression she might have felt as she declares that had he not died, she would have killed him. She explains that she did not have time to kill her father because he died before she could manage to do it. The speaker uses metaphor to express that her father was God to her. However, he was a heavy, huge statue of God with no feelings for her. Sylvia's father suffered diabetic gangrene and one of his feet was amputated. She describes the remaining toe as a seal, suggesting how enormous and overbearing her father seemed to her. He was hardened, without feelings, and now that he is dead, she thinks he looks like an enormous, ominous statue. The speaker uses hyperbole to show how small and insignificant she feels to her father, who has taken up her entire life. She compares him to a statue that has overtaken all of the United States. For her, her father, or his memories are larger than life. He is also evil. Stanza 3, lines 11 to 15. And ahead in the freakish Atlantic, where it pours bean green over blue. In the waters of beautiful Nauset, I used to pray to recover you, Archdu. In this stanza, the speaker reveals that for her, her father was her whole world. She continues the metaphor of the statue of God. The statue's head is in the Atlantic on the coast at Nauset Beach, Cape Cod, where the Plath family used to holiday. The father icon stretches across the USA. She mentions how earnestly she prayed for her father's recovery as a kid. The last line is a German phrase meaning, "Oh, you." Her father was a German immigrant to the USA. Stanza 4, lines 16 to 20. In the German tongue, in the Polish town, scraped flat by the roller of wars, 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 but the name of the town is common, my Polak friend. In this stanza, the poet remembers her father came from a Polish town where German was the main language spoken. She explains that the town he grew up in had endured one war after another. She alludes to the invasion of Poland by Nazi Germany. She mentions that she would never be able to identify which specific town her father was from because the name of his hometown was common. She learned this from her Polak friend. Stanza 5, lines 21 to 25 says, "There are a dozen or two, so I never could tell where you put your foot, your root. I never could talk to you. The tongue stuck in my jaw." The speaker continues to explain what her friend from Poland has said. There are more than a dozen towns by the same name in Poland, so she cannot ascertain which specific town her father was from. All this information she gathered from her friend as she never had a talk with her father. The speaker hints at a lack of communication, instability, and paralysis due to fear of her father. She just could not converse with her father. He was so strict and terrifying. Stanza 6, lines 26 to 30. It stuck in a barbed wire snare, itch, 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 itch. I could hardly speak. I thought every German was you, and the language obscene. The speaker continues to remember how fearful she felt whenever she was with her father during her childhood. Whenever she tried to speak, she stumbled and continued to repeat itch, 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 which is the German word for eye. She was unable to communicate with him. She explains that despite being her father, he was nothing specific for her, and she felt as if every German was her father, strict, harsh, and obscene. Stanza 7, lines 31 to 35. An engine, shuffling me off like a Jew to Dachau, Auschwitz, Belsen. I began to talk like a Jew. I think I may well be a Jew. In this stanza, the speaker alludes to the death trains, engine, taking her off to a Nazi concentration camp where millions of Jews were cruelly tortured, gassed, and cremated during World War II. Dachau, Auschwitz, Belsen were concentration camps where Jews were worked to death, starved, and murdered. She uses a simile to make the connection more prominent, saying, I began to talk like a Jew. I think I may well be a Jew. The speaker associates her fear and terror of her father with the struggle of the Jewish people against the Nazis. Stanza 8, lines 36 to 40. The snows of the Tyrol, the clear beer of Vienna, are not very pure or true, with my gypsy ancestress and my weird luck, and my Tarek pack, I may be a bit of a Jew. In these lines, the speaker mentions how her father had a strict code of morality, purity, and behavior. The white snow and the clear beer contrast starkly with the dark deeds inflicted by Nazis in the name of racial purity. The speaker is consciously and deliberately choosing sides. The speaker identifies not only with Jews but also with gypsies. In fact, she seems to identify with anyone who has ever felt oppressed by the Germans. In the last line of the stanza, the speaker suggests that she is probably part Jewish and part gypsy. Stanza 9, lines 41 to 45. I have always been scared of you with your Luftwaffe and your gobbledygook, and your neat mustache and your Aryan eye, bright blue, Pangerman, oh you. The speaker continues the allusion to Nazi German as her father and admits that she has always been afraid of him. Luftwaffe is the German Air Force. Gobbledygook is a gibberish or a childlike word that conveys her disdain for German. This implies that the speaker feels that her father and his language made no sense to her. In this instance, she felt afraid of him and feared everything about him. She calls herself a Jew and her father a Nazi killer. He was Aryan with blue eyes. He was something fierce and terrifying to the speaker. A Panzerman means a German tank driver. Stanza 10, lines 46 to 50. Not God but a swastika, so black no sky could squeak through. Every woman adores a fascist, the boot in the face, the brute heart of a brute like you. Sylvia's father was never a Nazi, yet he was a male and she suffered oppressive male authority. In the second stanza, she compares her father to God. Here she asserts that he was not God but a German swastika, another symbol of oppression. The swastika was so big it blacked out the entire sky or the speaker's whole world. In the next lines, the speaker expresses the helplessness of women in general. Men are fascist, oppressive, and brute, while women are oppressed victims. Yet, they are expected to adore their men. Perhaps she is saying that in relationships, women are dominated by men. To love a man, you must be masochistic. This statement may also be more bitterly sarcastic than true. If it is meant as a statement of fact, it is criticizing women as well as the brutes they love. Stanza 11, lines 51 to 55. You stand at the blackboard, daddy, in the picture I have of you. A cleft in your chin instead of your foot, but no less a devil for that, no not. Any less the black man woo. The speaker describes a photo of her father, and in the picture he is standing at a blackboard, probably in a classroom, teaching. Sylvia's father was a biology professor. In the next three lines, the speaker compares her father to the devil as she notices the picture. Her father had a cleft on his chin. The devil is often depicted as some sort of animal, like a goat, that has hooves and not feet. Devil is often depicted with a cleft or indent in his feet. Like many other stanzas in the poem, this too ends with an enjambment, a poetic device in which an idea is split between two lines. Stanza 12, lines 56 to 60. Bit my pretty red heart in two, I was 10 when they buried you. At 20, I tried to die and get back to you. I thought even the bones would do. In this stanza, the speaker expresses her deep affection for her father. While her father had a cleft on his chin, he was no less than the devil with a cleft on his feet. She loved him so much that losing him bit her heart in two. Though she loved him, he was no less a cruel man. She depicts her father as Hughes, evil and black, opposite of light or innocence, while her heart is pretty red and victim. Sylvia's father died when she was a little more than 8. However, in the poem, she mentions she was 10 when her father died and was buried. 10 years later, when she was 20, she attempted to die as well. She confesses that the reason she attempted suicide was to get back to her father. She thought that even if she was never to see him again in the afterlife, simply having her bones buried by his bones would be enough of a comfort to her. The speaker repeats back 3 times, epizeuxis. The repetition here emphasizes her fertile desperation. Stanza 13, lines 61 to 65. But they pulled me out of the sack and they stuck me together with glue, and then I knew what to do. I made a model of you, a man in black with a Mein Kampf look. Though she tried to kill herself to be with her father even in death, the doctors did not let her die. She was pulled back. Though she was broken and lost, the doctors helped her regain, but someone who has been glued back together would not ever feel quite right again. To fill the void, she tried to make a model of his father. She decided to have a substitute for her father, probably by finding a real man whom she imagines is like her father. This substitute, the other man, is like her father. She does not describe him as black, but says that he is a man in black. Though this new man may not have a mustache, he appears like a Hitler, a Nazi, Mein Kampf look. Stanza 14, lines 66 to 70. And a love of the rack and the screw, and I said, I do, I do. So daddy, I am finally through. The black telephone's off at the root, the voices just can't warm through. This man is a sadist, wears black and looks like Hitler, and she succumbs to his torture because she longs for her father. The speaker finally fulfills her Electra complex. Basically, the Electra complex is a theory that women seek men who are like their fathers. She marries him, confirming her wedding vows, I do. So now she no longer needs her father. She cuts off communication with him, the dad, here. The father and daughter can no longer communicate. Stanza 15, lines 71 to 75. If I have killed one man, I have killed two. The vampire who said he was you, and drank my blood for a year, 7 years if you want to know. Daddy, you can lie back now. The speaker again asserts her willingness to kill her father, but now she says that she has killed two men. It is figurative. She has killed no one in reality, but killing here means ending ties, getting rid of, becoming independent and free of oppression. But who is the second man she has killed? The second man is the man that she modeled after her father and married, and now they are divorced. This second man, her husband, is like Hitler and a vampire who kept sucking her blood for a year while they were going through the ordeal of separation. Then she mentions that she has been exploited by him for 7 years. A vampire drinking blood is a metaphor for her husband who has been draining her life away, like a vampire would drain his victim's blood. Maybe she thought he was only cruel to her for 1 year, but upon further thought, she realizes that he has really been cruel for 7, which could be the totality of their marriage or acquaintance. After asserting that she has killed both her father and the man she married, who reminded her of him, she tells her father to lie back or relax or accept his defeat. Stanza 16, lines 76 to 80. There's a stake in your fat back black heart, and the villagers never liked you. They are dancing and stamping on you. They always knew it was you. Daddy, daddy, you bastard, I am through. The speaker is addressing the part of her father that is in herself, his memories and her love for him, to lie back because he is dead. Her cruel father, the devil, Nazi, Hitler, a vampire, has lived past his physical death. He kept sucking her will to live, but he must die for good now, or his effect on her must diminish. To do so, a stake has been pushed through his black heart like a vampire should be killed. She has exorcised or mentally killed him properly this time. In this stanza, the speaker alludes to Bram Stoker's Dracula, in which vampires lived near little villages and hunted the villagers. As he is dead now, the villagers are dancing. They always knew that the vampire was her father, causing all sorts of problems and mysterious disappearance in the villages. In the last line, the speaker asserts her independence from memories and gloominess because of her father. In the whole poem of 80 lines, the speaker uses the word daddy 6 times, twice in the last line, making us stress that now she is free of the bad memories, now she won't be exploited anymore. So this is it for today. We will continue to discuss the history of American English literature. Please stay connected with the discourse. Thanks and regards.